morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I'm back.
Yay!
I got some good stuff for you coming down the road, too. I had a hard time deciding what am I going to speak on today. I have a show and tell item, and that's what I was fishing in the bag for. I know I brought it, and it's really important. I hope you can find it.
What color is the bag?
It's a see-through bag with a black box in it, if someone wants to go fishing.
Is this it?
Yeah.
No, that's not it. See-through plastic bag. It's like a hard plastic. I went through all that stuff. I thought I had it in there. No, it's not.
You see it?
That's amazing.
A little black box, like a jewelry box in it.
Oh, okay. It's very small, like
Yeah.
a jewelry box.
And it's a hard plastic. But anyhow, we'll find it afterwards, and what I'm going to talk about, you'll be able to handle and see and touch. So,
Oh.
okay guys, that's okay.
We'll stop.
All right. Well, so far that's the only thing that I've misplaced, and that's the big important thing. Well, you're going to pay for this one. Okay. Let's start with slide number 1. Or do you want to give me the thing and I can do it? Okay. Wow, that's a beautiful picture. Would you believe I was right there one time?
Really?
Can anybody guess where we are?
No, I have no idea.
Oh, come on.
Rodrigo is the...
Rodrigo?
Rodrigo.
Rodrigo.
You know,
And this is not.
geography.
This
Okay,
is not
Rodrigo,
Spain.
where are we?
This is
We
not
the
Portuguese.
geographic guy.
We have not covered,
I
we
think
have
this is
not
a
done this.
plantation in Petrolina.
Looks like
Plantation in
it.
Brazil.
Well,
Elaine, give him a hint, like big valley, big valley.
I'll tell him, We're going to be covering this, I briefly covered it, but when we were talking about Jericho,
Huh?
this is another tell, remember? Does anybody remember the word tell? T-E-L.
Yeah.
What is it?
Oh, Viv.
All
like
right,
Tel
what does
Aviv?
that mean? What does tell mean? T-E-L. Anybody?
Oh,
Tell means hill. Okay? I talked to you about Jericho, how it was all built in layers.
Yeah.
Layer after layer, destruction, destruction. The reason being, Jericho is a very important place in Israel because it's a major throughway. I told you that Africa, Asia, Asia, to get to all the 3 continents, you have to go through Israel because otherwise you've got desert on one side and ocean on the other. So that's a throughway. Israel was the throughway. And Jericho was one of the throughways, and whoever handled Jericho could handle all the traffic going all over the place. And I don't know how these things work.
You click something.
Nice working.
I touched it by mistake. So Jericho was built like this too, because the city was destroyed, it was built over, destroyed, built over. And what they do is they do archaeological digs. Does anybody know what archaeology means?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me. Archaeology.
Study the old things.
What kind of old things? Antiques?
The old things.
Archaeology
The
means,
history behind...
but it's digging.
Digging.
It's digging. Archaeology is the study of digging. Old things. Archaeology comes from the word archaic. If you know that word, archaic means old. So they dig layer by layer by layer. This is Megiddo. Does that ring a bell? Anybody? What is Megiddo?
The Valley of the...
Armageddon. It comes from the word Har Megiddo, hill of Megiddo. So they say whoever controlled this controlled the world, because all the traffic would go through here. From the Mediterranean, you could get through. Look at that valley, how flat it is. It's one of the only places in Israel where you have land like this, really basically like that. So I just wanted to show you that because I'm going to talk about archaeology a little bit, so you can see the layers. They have about 24 layers of civilization there. And the next one, it's kind of an odd way you're looking at it, but pretend you're, a bird looking down. This is Magdala. Does the word Magdala sound familiar? New Testament. We're in the New Testament.
Magdalena?
Anybody?
What's Magdalena?
Magdalena?
Portuguese?
Yes!
What's Magdalena?
Mary Magdalene. This This is the town where Mary Magdalene lived.
Oh,
We lived a few
Magdalena.
miles from right here, and when we lived there in the 1990s, this was all covered with dirt. It was full of trees. We could see a little sign, Town of Migdal, which is the town of Magdala. They've recently dug this up, and this is from the time of Jesus, which is interesting. You know, Jesus might have walked these
I
corridors.
see Mary's house right there.
Somewhere. Yeah, Mary Magdalene's house. So I want to show you a little bit how they do that. Pretend this is all grass, trees. It was all overgrown. It was like no, you know, and Jesus cursed 3 of the cities in that area. This is where Jesus did a lot of his ministry, around this is right near Capernaum. He cursed Capernaum and Chorazim, and I think there's one more. And to this day, these areas are not inhabited. And Jesus, what Jesus said, his words came out that this land, those towns would not prosper anymore, and they did not. To this day, they basically don't exist. It's the town of. So I'm trying to show you archaeology, okay? Next. How do they, when they dig through these layers, how do they know what they're doing? How do they date things? You know, everything disintegrates over 2,000 years, pretty much. They can't find clothing, they can't find wood, they can't find, it's all gone. Basically, they do a lot of dating through pottery, because different civilizations have different styles of pottery. Also, pottery, sometimes they find inscriptions on it. Sometimes people would use it. Pottery was so everyday use, it would break a lot. They'd use it like we use scrap paper. They'd write notes on it. In fact, in Masada, when they drew lots is when you pick your name, and you know, they didn't use paper. They used pottery shards, broken pottery, and they wrote names on it. And if your name got pulled, well, that's a whole other story. But that's how they knew that this historical story was true about Masada. And archaeology proves the Bible. They're finding all these writings and different things saying, yeah, the Bible said there was a battle with the Egyptians there. Sure enough, that later they find Egyptian things or whatever. So they date things through pottery. And next. And then again, you can see a P. That was probably a nice fancy vase. They found that Hebrew writing on there. That's from the city of David in Jerusalem. They're just recently finding and excavating the city of David now, which is really interesting what they're finding. Proving the Bible. So I'm going to touch on coins today, biblical coins. We'll go to the next one. This was found in Modin in Israel, halfway between Tel Aviv, which is on the Mediterranean, to Jerusalem is the new city. That's the newer city of Modin. This is called a hoard of coins. I get a magazine called Biblical Archaeology, and they're giving you all the latest finds, you know, in the land of the Bible. And when they say we found a hoard of coins, this is what they find. They find them all in one bunch. Why do they do that? I mean, why would they all of a sudden find coins in one bunch? Well, you know, Israel has been under a lot of wars. I mean, constantly under wars, occupation, sieges, everything. So let's say, you know, you don't keep your money in the bank, you keep your money in the house. Let's say, oh, the Romans are coming, they'll be here soon. What are they going to do? They're going to pillage you, they're going to, you know, when the foreign armies come in, they're going to steal all your money and stuff. So what do? You hide it. You go bury it somewhere in hopes that when you're free or when you escape, later on you can come back and find your coins. In many cases, they weren't able to come back. So that's why they find hoards of coins like this, left behind. Next. We're going to talk about 2 coins today, and one of them is the temple tax. Okay, this is Peter, and you all know the story where the tax collector went to Peter and says, "Does your master pay taxes?" You know that story? Okay, and Peter says, "Oh yeah, sure, you know, he pays taxes." And so Peter went back in the house, and Jesus knew what had gone on outside. He questioned him on that. And this, let me just read what that says. Let's go on to the next one. He says, after Jesus, this is from Matthew, after Jesus and his disciples arrived in Capernaum, the collectors of the 2 drachma, remember that, What you're going to find throughout the Bible is they're going to describe money in different terms. Okay, drachma is one of them. So when you read that, you're probably thinking, what is a drachma? Okay, we're going to cover that. But the collector said, you know, you need to pay the 2 drachma temple tax. He said that to Peter. He said, doesn't your teacher pay that? He said, yes, he does, he replied. And when Peter came into the house, Jesus was the first to speak to him. It's like, Peter, what have you been up to, right? What do you think, Simon, he asked. From whom do kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? From their children or from others? Now, when you read this on your own, you've got to really read that and say, what is Jesus saying? From whom do the kings of the earth collect duty and taxes? His Father is king in heaven. He's God's son. Does God want him to pay taxes? He's saying, no, it's their own children. Their own children don't pay taxes. The king doesn't ask his children to pay taxes. From others, Peter answered. He doesn't collect it from his own children. Then the children are exempt, Jesus said to him. But so that we may not offend the tax collectors and cause a lot of trouble and all be thrown in jail, he tells Peter, go to the lake and throw out your line. Take the first fish you catch, open its mouth, and you will find a 4 drachma coin in it. Take it and give it to them for taxes for me and you. You notice it says he found a 4 drachma coin, and the temple tax is 2 drachmas. So it's enough to cover for the both of them. A drachma is a Greek coin in those days, and that is almost equivalent to a denarii. Now, you told me that in Portuguese you have that word similar, denarii? Is that right? Okay. We're going to
Dinheiro.
Oh, okay, whatever he said. Maybe not. We're going to cover that coin too.
Dinero. In Spanish, it's dinero.
So when you read that, you just start thinking to yourself, you know, what is he saying? One thing about the Bible, sometimes, a lot of times, it's like a puzzle. You don't always get the full answer here, but yet, like I always keep telling you, go to concordance and look up all the verses on taxes, and all of a sudden you'll get a story here, and all of a sudden the puzzle starts coming together. God wants you to dig, you know, he's not going to throw everything on, well, like, here's dessert, just take it. It's like, if you want, my word is precious, if you want it, you're going to have to search it out, okay? So just, you know, don't just read like 20 pages a day and the Bible will go do. Just take it slow and think about it. Start asking questions. What does he mean by that? What does he mean by that? So he's saying, you know, pay taxes. But me, you know, we're God's children, and this was referring to the temple tax, okay? Because well, actually, this is the temple. Where are we going here? After Jews? Yeah, for the temple tax. That's different than paying taxes to Caesar, and we're going to cover that one later. This is the temple tax. Jesus having to pay taxes to the temple, God's house, his Father's house, okay? In the Bible, like I said, you will have many different explanations for the word money. You'll have like talent. How many of you have heard the word talent? He was paid in talents, or he owed so many talents. This is an interesting one. I'll tell you what a talent is equal to, like a drachma or denarii, okay? A denarii, remember, if you can remember anything, a denarii is 1 day's wage. Okay, 1 day's wage. Now, this is a cool story about a talent. A man, this is in Matthew, a man owed a king 10,000 talents. You know how much money that was? Now, you're reading that, doesn't mean anything to you. What's 10,000 talents? For all I know, that's like $500 or something. He owed 10,000 talents. 10,000 talents is 46 pounds of silver is 1 talent. He owed 10,000 of those. That would go into the millions today. And the story goes that the king called him because he owed the king 10,000 talents. And the king says, you're going to pay up. And he begging the king, oh, please forgive me, I'm going to pay you. And the king felt sorry for him and forgave him, right? What happens? The guy who had a $10,000 talent that he owed in the millions, he goes now and attacks his servant who owed him 100, let me get the right facts here, owed him much less. It was actually the next statement, he owed him about 100 denarius, 200 denarius. You know what that is? I told you it's 1 day's wage. So he owed him 200 days of wage versus this guy who owed him a few $1,000,000. Now he goes to him and says, okay, you're going to pay up. He says, that servant does the same thing. He says, oh, please forgive me, I'll work hard and pay it. And he says, no, 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 I'm not going to forgive you, you go to jail, and he jails him. So Jesus has a parable to that. You can see with the end of the story how that would go. So you're talking, you know, so you're going to see that term, a talent, how much that's worth. Just remember 46 pounds of silver is 1 talent. If you can remember that, that kind of gives you an idea how much money you're talking. And then a denarius is 1 day's wage, okay? Now another cool story is, well, this is kind of a quick story. There's a story of a woman in the Bible where she has 10 coins and she loses 1. You all know that story? If not, you can look it up. She gets real upset that she lost 1 drachma. We talked about a drachma. And that, excuse me, you can go back because that's a drachma to the right there. Go back to the coins. No, the coins. No, the other way. Yeah, that one on the right, that's a drachma. That was in the fish's mouth. It's a pretty big coin. It's probably the size of a quarter. And you wonder, why would a fish have that in his mouth? But if you study the fish in the Sea of Galilee, it's not really a sea, it's a lake. It's 10 miles by 50 miles, but they call it the Sea of Galilee. They have a lot of tilapia. You guys ever have tilapia fish? Apparently, some species in the Sea of Galilee, they eat on, what they just eat is on the ground. They'll eat plankton, you know, green plants and stuff. And their mouth is huge because when they have babies, they hold the fish and they hold the babies in their mouth. And they just eat from the floor. You know, when you go fishing, you put silver lures on your fishing line, silver, because silver attracts the fish. You know, silver discs. You know, when you put weights in, you go fishing, and you attach silver. Well, I guess you're not fishing people. It attracts the fish because baby fish tend to reflect silver in the water. So fish like to go toward anything that shines in the silver sun. So you can see how a fish might have swallowed that coin. You know, it fell to the ground, he's fishing around and eating, oh, a nice silver fish, let's eat it, you know. And they have a big mouth so that he could hold a coin like that. So it's just interesting. God knew what everything was. But I was talking to you about the lady that had the story in the Bible. She has 10 coins and she loses 1 and she has a panic attack. She goes around sweeping the whole house. She turns all the lights on. Finally, she finds this 1 coin to the point that she celebrates so much. And it's only a drachma, you know, the coins were drachmas. Those aren't worth, you know, a day's, they're equivalent to a denarius, a day's wage, right? So she has a party and has everybody come to the house. Why would she get so excited for 1 coin that's worth 1? It so happens, Middle Eastern culture, when brides got married, they had, you've seen women wear a band here with coins hanging. They would get married with 10. And she lost her 1. And that's it means a lot because they would wear that all the time. And apparently, this I read, I don't know how true it is, but if you lose 1, it would show that she has been unfaithful. So she didn't want to go out in public with her 9 coins. She needed her 10. So you can see why. So when you learn the culture in the Bible, it really, some of these stories you read, they say, why did she get so excited for that? So go fish it out. That's a pun, right? Go fish it out. Go look in the concordance and find out why this happened, or manners and customs of the Bible coins. And this is the stuff I just dug up, just trying to look this up. Okay, we have another story. We're going to end with this last one. Can you go on?
So good to learn.
This is the story. You're all familiar with the phrase, render to Caesar what is Caesar's. You all know that phrase? Anybody? You guys going to all have to look this up. This is Jesus in the temple. Now, this took place, you all know the story of Palm Sunday. Jesus on Palm Sunday goes into Jerusalem. They're all praising him, welcome King and all. Well, you got to know that got all the Pharisees pretty upset. The Pharisees and the priests and everything, they just had about enough of Jesus. They say, he's dangerous, we got to get rid of him. So this occurred, this incident, the next day after Palm Sunday is when he turned over the tables. Now you got to know, Palm Sunday, 5 days later, he's going to be crucified. So you have Palm Sunday, Monday he turns over the tables, you know, because of the, you know, they're doing money and all this, exchanging money on the temple grounds. And, you know, he says, you have made my Father's house into a den of thieves. He turns all the tables over. I'm sure that didn't go over too big. And then on Tuesday, they want to trap him. They really want to get rid of Jesus. So the high priest and the Pharisees, they got a hold of the Herodians. Do you know who the Herodians are? These were Jewish politicians, kind of. You know, they really weren't into Jewish things, right? They were more secular. And they were trying to get buddy-buddy with King Herod so they could get some brownie points, you know. So they said, the priests, we're going to get the Herodians to go and question Jesus with this question. And no matter which way Jesus answers this question, he's going to get caught. We'll be able to report it to Herod or to the high priest or whatever. And the question was, should we pay taxes to Rome, to Caesar? Now if Jesus says no, then the Herodians are going to go blab to King Herod, get him arrested, and probably get him killed, right? If he says, yes, no, you should pay taxes, yes, you should pay taxes, then the Jews, the high priests and all that are going to get mad at him. Oh, we shouldn't have to pay taxes to him. Whichever way he answered that, they were trapping him, and Jesus knew that. And let's read further that quote, and we'll see how he answered that. It says, then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent their disciples to him along with Herodians. There they are. Teacher, they said, we know you are, and they're buttering him up. Okay, teachers, they said, we know that you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? He says, show me the coin used for paying the tax. And the reason I'm ending with this is I actually have this coin. I have an actual coin from that time period. Okay, I purchased it like 35 years ago. I hate to tell you what it's going for now. But I want you to be able to hold it and feel it and say, you know, is this the coin they used to present to Jesus? Now, this is in Mark, Matthew, and Luke Gospel, almost word for word. And in two of the Gospels, they actually use the word denarius, okay? And they said, show me the coin. And in all three Gospels, Jesus says, show me the coin, but it never says that he touched it. So I can't say, well, look at this coin, Jesus might have touched it. Because Jesus said, show me the coin. And he asked them in all three Gospels, who is on the coin and what inscription is on it? And you'll be able to see the coin and you'll be able to see the inscription. And they replied, Caesar. Because that coin was from the time when Tiberius Caesar was ruling. So Tiberius's picture is actually on that coin. He said, Caesar. And then he said to them, so give back, great answer, give back to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's. Now when I read this, I'm not going to get into this because this is a question I'm going to throw out to you. What does belong to Caesar is the question, okay? We know we have to pay taxes. I mean, how else will we survive? You know, the taxes pay for a lot of good things, for the roads, but in those days, they abused it too. Okay, so he's basically saying, what is due Caesar, pay him, and what is due God, God. But you know, it says in Psalms that God owns everything. So you could take this so many different ways, and if you go on YouTube, you might get a little confused as to all the... But then again, you read other things of what Jesus said. You go to the coin in the fish's mouth where Jesus says, pay the tax. You know, we're not going to start World War III over not paying our taxes, you know. So basically, I want to be able to show you when you read something, question it, research it, don't read word for word and saying, so give back to Caesar, what is Caesar's? He's a crook, he kills people, but yet he's still a ruler. He's a ruler, he's providing roads for you, he's providing, I don't know if I can say protection, because he was killing, you know, they were murdering the new Christians in those days. So there's a lot to think about on that. So I had a few, on the coin, can we go see the actual coin again? Okay, yeah.
This one?
Yes, this is the one I'm going to show you. It's a denarii, so when you read about denarii, and if you want to know more stories about the denarii, where you see it in the New Testament, you'll also see it, the Good Samaritan. You know the story of the Good Samaritan, where someone was beaten and he took care of them, and he gave 2 denarii to the innkeeper to take care of him. How many days would that have taken care of him? 2 days, all right, good student, 2 denarii. So that's one of the stories. The one we just covered, render to Caesar what is Caesar's. And the workers in the vineyard. You all know that story? This is an interesting one. The owner of the vineyard, early in the morning, they start working 6 o'clock in the morning in Israel because it's so hot. He hires some workers at 6 in the morning and says, I'm going to pay you 1 denarii for the day. And they accept, we're happy, that's a day's wage, that's fair. But then the owner of the vineyard goes again at 9 o'clock, hires somebody, goes again at 12, hires more people, goes again at 3, hires more people. And then at the end of the day, he's going to pay everybody. He starts with the last one who started like at 5 o'clock. He pays him 1 denarii. The same as the guy who's been there since 9 o'clock. Well, you got to know the first guy's complaining. Well, God has a message in that too. So that's, again, where you see another story of the denarii. So just to give you an idea, you know, when you're reading your Bible, you might have more ideas of what you're talking about. So when you see a denarii, it's 1 day's wage. A drachma is about 1 day's wage too. And that was that big coin, okay? And I gave you the 2 stories that go with that.